Do you notice anything missing? Oh, let's go back. There used to be an RV sitting here. My old Newmar New Air, sold, done. The purchaser came by and picked it up yesterday, and he's on his way home. So that is a huge load off my shoulders, and was the linchpin to me being able to resume my travels. I've been here in Connecticut since August, which is, what is that, 8-9 months? I don't know. I don't want to do the math. So, if you haven't been watching my channel, I live full-time in this thing now for 2 years. I previously had a Class A, and I now have a fifth wheel with a truck pulling it. This is my home, and I'm still moving in. I'm really not an alcoholic, which is why this is still out here with pollen on it, which is just fantastic. So anyway, I wanted to do a real quick update since my last video, especially because the RV has been sold, and I wanted to cover how I've been doing for the past, I don't know, what has it been, a month or so since the last video? Just cover the solar and living in this RV, and maybe a little bit what's next. So I'm completely winging this video, so please excuse me being all over the place and unorganized, but I'm just far too lazy to, to pre-organize the video. So this is the 50 amp receptacle that I would normally be plugged into at my parents' house here. You'll notice I'm not plugged in. Since I arrived about a month ago, I have not plugged into electrical power. I have been 100% solar power, and that includes running the heat pump when I've needed the heat, or air conditioning when I've needed air conditioning. If you're not familiar with this area of New England, the temperatures fluctuate quite wildly. So we've had some 30-degree nights, probably upper 20s. And so I was heating with propane as well as with the heat pump, and I've been trying to understand and learn like the power requirements of the heat pump and of the air conditioning. So I'm going to talk about all of that. And if you haven't seen my previous videos, real quick, behind these panels I have 28 kilowatt hours of battery. That's the equivalent of 22 Battleborn 100 amp hour batteries, which would retail for about $22,000. I built that battery system for roughly $4,000. I have 8,000 watts of inverter in here, and there is no generator built in to the unit. The generator would normally go right there, and I did not option in the generator because my hope was to have built the system so big that I don't need one. But large battery is not everything you need. The battery only gets you by the really cloudy days. So what do I have on the roof? I can't really easily show you. I don't want to get on a ladder right now. The only way I have to get up on the roof is to take my ladder and extend it up to the slide out, and then stand on the slide out and walk and get up onto the roof. But on the roof, I have 3.3 kilowatts of solar. That's 10 335 watt panels. So that is where all my juice comes from. And yes, this place is a pigsty. I'm still moving in, and a lot of stuff is still sitting out, because one of the things that I really need to do is get myself to a store and get some bins for organizing the stuff that needs to go up in here. I can't put a lot of this stuff just in the cabinets, not only because things will move around, but the cabinets just aren't really built with all the shelving and whatnot you'd really need in order to get all the stuff that's, these are pretty tall, but it'd be a waste of space to like put the fan, here and then have a shelf all the way up here, so basically it's just an organization mess that I need to do. My computer's set up. This is my personal computer here. I also have my work computer. They're both under here. I still have a little bit of work to do from a wiring perspective so I can keep the cabinets closed and all that happy stuff, but that's my office now since I work remotely full-time. And I've got this drafting chair. This might be new since the last video, probably is. So I just got a drafting chair, which is, essentially a taller version of a computer chair, since this is a lunch bar and it sits at 36 inches instead of 30. So I needed a higher chair for that. I am loving my oven. Oh, terrible. So this is a Bluestar commercial range, and I'm not like a huge chef or anything. I don't know if I need to adjust this, but you can see there's a star pattern for the flame here, and that has made cooking 10 times easier. This is going to sound stupid, but I can even fry eggs without getting the undersides of the eggs brown at all. I don't think I've ever been able to do that. It's so easy to cook on this thing that it's actually encouraging me to cook. In fact, I just cooked tonight. I sauteed some mushrooms and a little piece of chicken. So, loving this. The one thing that I didn't realize for the oven, which turns out not to be a problem because I do have such a big solar system, but keep this in mind for yourself if you're going to have an oven. This uses an electric pilot to keep the oven, to get the oven lit and keep it lit. So the entire time that the oven flame is on, so the entire preheat cycle, and then any time the oven has turned on in order to maintain temperature, there's a hot glowing, rod or whatever, coil in there to keep the flame lit. That consumes about 500 watts. So that's obviously not insignificant. So I was shocked by that, but it really doesn't turn out to be a problem for me in my system. So, I've used this. I use the microwave. I use the toaster. I use my coffee maker. That's obviously a big coffee maker, and that thing pulls a good 1,200 watts. The dishwasher, the refrigerator. I do have a washer and dryer back there. In fact, I'm doing the laundry right now. The dryer is running. It's a heat pump dryer. It's the Miele. I've got this little Kindle Fire over here showing the solar stuff. And so my base load right now is probably about 300 watts. And so that dryer is using less than 1,000 watts right now, which is pretty incredible. It'll dry the clothes in less than 2 hours, so it's probably less than 2 kilowatt hours worth of energy to dry that clothing. So not a big deal. So 65-inch TV OLED. Now this was another surprise. This consumes more power than I thought it would, and it varies dramatically depending on what's showing on the picture. So if the screen is black, it consumes something like 60 watts. If the screen is relatively bright, has a lot of motion, I've seen it consume something like 150 or 200 watts. I'm forgetting now, but it's a lot. And because the Kindle Fire showing the usage is right here, and I can actually read it from the sofa that's behind us here in the video. I was able to see what's going on the screen in relation to the power consumption. It's really funny to watch, and it was surprising how much it uses. So you would think this would be like, oh, this is a great way to sip electricity from a TV perspective. It turns out not to be. It's a pretty significant load. So I do make sure this is something that I shut off at night. The ceiling fan, on the other hand, this is on low, consumes like 7 watts on low. I haven't measured it on high. I just keep this on because these ceilings are so tall, just to keep the temperature even. There have been times when, it's like, say, cool down here, and then I walk up these stairs and I can feel the heat, up here. The ceiling is, I can now touch the ceiling here. So this helps keep the get the heat down, or, just sort of equalize the temperature. So yeah, this is me being a mess. But it's quite warm here. But yeah, this is a heat pump dryer, and in fact it just finished. I didn't realize it at first, but this is a water tank here, and because this is extracting moisture, and it doesn't have anywhere to go. It's not plumbed anywhere, so it just goes in here, and I have to occasionally empty that out. So these things have been performing quite well. I'm really pleased with those units. So as far as all that's concerned, I brought my Bobopedic, which is a Tempur-Pedic knockoff bed, into this unit. The air conditioning I'll talk about actually right now. So they provided two 9K or 9,000 BTU cassettes. There's one here and there's one in the living room. Now from a square footage perspective, 9,000 is actually appropriate for this amount of square footage. I forget the square footage number, but I calculated the square footage and then I went to the LG website and that this is an appropriate size for that. However, this is not a house, right? It's not as well insulated as a house. So this needs to be bigger, in my opinion. My experience with this providing heat is it's insufficient to heat the room. You're going to need the propane to assist. As far as air conditioning is concerned, if I set this thing to maximum, essentially what you have to do is set it to 64 and then you turn on the power cool mode, which is essentially ultra high for the fan. And let's say it's 85, upper 80s outside, then you're able to eventually get the interior down to say 72 and it'll maintain that temperature. So that's not great. And there's some flaws with this design too. It's got a temperature sensor that's in line with the intake, so that's how it's measuring the temperature. But it's way up here, and it's just not getting an accurate sense of the temperature. So I've got this here to tell me what the current temperature is, and I can't get this to go below 72 as long as the sun is up. If it's in the upper 80s. We're about to have some 90+ degree days, so I'm definitely going to be curious how the system performs. So anyway, there are different cassettes that fit. This is a 2 foot by 2 foot cassette cutout. 9K is the minimum. They do make an 11K and they make an 18K. I kind of personally I'm like all about overkill when it comes to this sort of stuff. I kind of am tempted to put an 18K in there, but I'm not going to be able to do this now after this unit has been built because the 18K requires bigger lines back to the compressor, but the 11K does not. So, going from 9 to 11K is another, 20%-ish. And so that will certainly help. And so I'm going to work on making that happen. The outdoor unit is a 30K, 30,000 BTU unit. And you can run, what you do when you build these things is you spec the indoor units to be between 40 and 130% of your outdoor unit capacity. So even if I put an 18K in here, even if I put an 18K in both, that would be a total of 36. But, that if math serves me right, that's still below 130% of the outdoor unit. So that would be an okay configuration. Certainly 18 here and 9 in the bedroom would be okay. 11 and 9 is okay. 9 and 9 is okay. That's all within the percentages. So the real question I know you guys are going to have, so now you can see my base load is about 300 now that the dryer is off. So, and that's AC watts. The DC power here, which is as a calculated value, is just horribly inaccurate. So what we're gonna do shortly in the video here, and this is turning out to not be a quick video, but I think it covers a lot of important stuff, is I'm going to open up the VRM, the Victron remote monitor, maybe so what that stands for, they're basically their app, to take a look at the history of my system over the past few days, because I've had some interesting weather. So I want to show you what's happened during, the sunny days and all that sort of stuff and how my system has performed. Again, I have not plugged in since I got here. The lowest I have gotten my system down to was a couple of days ago, and I was kind of, abusing it. It was raining. It had been raining for 2 days, so I wasn't really generating a lot of solar. Still an impressive amount of solar considering it was raining. I mean, it was like 2 solid days of straight rain. So, but I ran the, I ran the heat pump, and I did a load of laundry, both the clothes washer and the dryer. And despite consuming all of that power, I only got myself down to 34% a couple of days ago. And yesterday, I believe I hit 75% before the day was over, or the solar day was over. And I hit 100% earlier today. So I'm so happy with the amount of power this thing is doing. So I'm going to swap over to the VRM app now, because I think I've covered everything I wanted to sort of show you in here. So let's hop over there. All right, so we're on the Victron VRM portal here. and we're looking at the details of my entire system. On the top here, we can see the current live statistics, so 220 watts of AC being pulled, batteries at 92%, and 43 watts of power coming in despite the fact that it is 7:45 here, and we're basically entering dusk, and it is mostly cloudy. So the DC power here is a calculated value and is notoriously inaccurate, so we can't really use this information. Down below, we've got historical data, so we've selected today, and you can see that my low point right around here, if I hover over it, my battery was at 58% before some sun started coming in. So the yellow bar is the solar production, and the red bar is consumption, and that's only the AC load consumption. The site doesn't yet include DC power consumption. That's something I'm actually trying to get them to consider doing. If I added a DC shunt here, it would provide accurate information, and then perhaps the VRM site could also use that in order to calculate this more accurately, because I tend to use about I think it's about 3 kilowatt hours it gets consumed out of the batteries from just DC loads on a typical day. So to this 8.6, you'd need, for this to be accurate, I would need to add about 3 if I want to sort of understand my consumption. So anyway, you can see today that I produced 19 kilowatt hours of solar. That's incredible, especially considering the fact that today was a partly sunny day. There were plenty of clouds up in the sky. There were definitely long moments of haze and all that sort of thing. On a fully sunny day, absolutely over 20 kilowatt hours would come into the system. And not only was this limited by clouds, it was limited by the fact that my battery reached 100%. So as soon as it reaches 100%, I'm throwing away solar. And you can see when that happens, right? The two bars, the red and the yellow bar, match each other in that situation, right? So I'm throwing away sun. So I probably would have gone over 20 today had the battery not reached full. And that's the other reason that this red bar started to go up, because I decided to do a load of laundry in an effort to try and not throw out all of the sun, but I ended up being a little bit too late in the day for that to actually be effective. As you can see, the solar production was a lot lower than the previous hour. So anyway, pretty fantastic day solar wise. Pretty fantastic that I fully recharged the battery, despite the fact that I was running the air conditioning for part of the day, and despite the fact that I did a load of laundry. I only used less than 9 kilowatt hours so far today. So let's take a look at yesterday, since that's a full 24-hour picture. Yesterday wasn't as sunny. So 17 kilowatt hours of solar, 7.4 kilowatt hours of AC usage throughout the entire day. Some of it, which again was air conditioning. It was a little bit warmer yesterday than it had been the previous few days. So here you can see my battery started off at 34%. So I went from 34% to 72%. And now let's get into the really good stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this to a 7-day view. And you can see the 26th of May here, right? So you see how the yellow bar is bigger than the red bar every day, all 3 of these days. The difference between these two, 10.89 and 13.89 in this first example here, the rest of that is mostly DC power. Some of it's just going to be losses and things like that. But generally speaking, about 3 kilowatt hours there went to DC power, and it's just not calculated into the graph here. So that's why it looks like I'm producing more solar than I'm consuming, which doesn't make a lot of sense. It's just not accounted for here. Anyway, so you can see also on this graph that my typical range here, 79%, 99%, 74%, 99%, 79%, 99%, right? So I basically hover between 80% and 100% on good solar days. So I produced, 14 kilowatt hours there, 14 and a half kilowatt hours there, and less here because this was the start of the bad weather. But you'll maybe wonder why this was only 14 kilowatt hours here and 14-ish kilowatt hours here. Again, this is because the battery went full, so I was throwing solar away. It's not because I wasn't able to produce more than that. It's just I didn't need it. So the 28th of May, the 29th of May, the 30th of May, you can see really bad days for solar production. So on the 28th, the clouds rolled in and we went into overcast conditions. Despite being overcast, I still produced 9.5 kilowatt hours. The 29th and 30th of May were literally raining all day long, and yet I still produced 4.6 and 3.7 kilowatt hours each on those 2 days, consuming 5.3 here and 5 kilowatt hours there. And this was not me like trying to conserve energy or anything special like that. I used propane heat. It was actually on the colder side. It was in the 40s outside. Just using my computers and TV, and of course the fridge is on, and just living life. Really not trying to conserve energy or anything like that. I'm sure I used the microwave and definitely used the coffee machine, that's for sure. And so this is where the battery starts to go down, right? Because I don't have enough sun to cover my utilization as well as recharge the losses from the previous night. So I get down to 75% here. I get down to 58% here, and it shows 40% here, but it was 34% here was my bottom. Now the graph here needs a little bit of explanation, because I wouldn't have hit as low as 34% here on the 1st of June. That's what I woke up with. And then I had a good solar day to recharge recharge the battery from 34% to 72%. I used the heat pump this night, despite not having a lot of solar, and I did a load of laundry, again using the clothes washer and dryer. And despite not trying to conserve energy, in fact, I'm almost like flaunting my usage by turning on all these high loads, I still only got down to 34%. That's still a very respectable amount of energy left out of a 28 kilowatt hour battery system. And then I had, I've had 2 good solar days, and then I hit 100% after the second day. So you can see I had, 1 bad day and 2 horrible days, and I still had no problem even without trying to conserve energy. So I've been really, really pleased with the way this has worked out for me. And there's one other note that I forgot to make in the first part of the video, and that is that the heat pump uses, when the mini split's in heat pump mode, and I guess that may not be the right term either, when I'm using the mini split to produce heat inside, then the power it uses is quite a bit higher than when I'm using it for air conditioning. So the maximum that I've seen heat mode pull is about 1600 watts. The maximum I've seen air conditioning pull is 1000 watts. And that's extremely rare to happen. So if I go to both the bedroom and the living area and set them both to maximum, I will briefly touch upon an additional 1000 watts of power. But that quickly goes down to about 700 watts. And so if there's a pretty, if it's hot outside and you want it cool inside, I'm expecting about 700 watts of usage while it's on. And, the less load there is, the minimum I've seen the mini split use. So it's, in other words, it's still on, and I still have cool air coming out of the register, the ceiling cassette. I've seen it using as little as 250 watts of power, and it is dead quiet. It's dead quiet even if it's on high. The outdoor units is almost silent, and the indoor unit, yeah, you can hear it, but it's background noise, not a big deal. But anyway, fantastic performance from them as far as energy utilization is concerned. Temperature aside, if I put it in 11K cassette in the living room, I'm sure that's going to increase the power demands a little bit, but it's not going to be anything significant. So all in all, I am really excited about my setup here. I've got some 90 plus degree days coming, and I'm fully expecting to be able to fully cover my power utilization, keep the interior cool, and have zero problems. So I'm going to end the video on that note, and I'll be making some new videos as I start to get underway within maybe a few weeks from now. And I'll be talking about the differences between having a fifth wheel and a Class A, and the whole truck towing situation. There's a lot of stuff to talk about there. So finally, I'll stop talking about solar and batteries for once on my videos and start getting back into camping mode and show you some of that fun stuff going on in my life. All right. As always, feel free to ask me any questions. Thanks so much for watching. Stay safe, and I hope summer is something we can all really enjoy this year. So take care, guys.